And we are live. We are live. Peace, peace. Greetings to you all. It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abba, BKA Mr. Just the Facts. Tonight we have a really, really interesting show for y'all. I'm waiting for some of my brothers to come on. My brother Josh is having some audio issues. I'm waiting for my brother Ali Bey to come on. So in the meantime, in between time, first let me give a shout out to everybody that's dealing with this coronavirus, the COVID-19, and condolences to those who have lost people. Get wells to those of you who have contracted it. I know several people. This thing's starting to hit closer and closer to home. Like a lot of people that I know and respect, et cetera, et cetera. So, I just want to start that off with that, as we deal with this whole thing. But I definitely want us to get into tonight's show. This is going to be part of a series of shows, actually, where we're going to be breaking down race and citizenship. So I'm going to bring my brothers in. I'm waiting for my brother Ali to come in because he's supposed to set it off. Brother Will, can you say something real quick?
Peace, peace, peace. What's going on, family?
All right, I was just making sure. Josh, can you say something? I still can't hear you, Josh. Yeah, so I'm waiting for Brother Ali Bey. But I guess we could wait for him to come on. And what we'll do is we'll just jump into this topic. So what I want to do is I want to start this off by saying everybody knows I'm in the Moorish movement, right? And I think a lot of people are starting to learn the difference just by my interactions with them, with the true Moors from these fake Moors that you hear and see online in many different venues talking a whole bunch of crazy stuff that causes people to think the Moors are just crazy in of themselves. So what I want to do real quick is I want to start off with something that Prophet Noble Drew Ali taught. And matter of fact, let me share my screen. Shout out to my bros that saw. Shout out to my brother Will L, Dr. Logic. Okay, there go. All right. Well, I'm gonna wait there. Ali Bey is on, so I'll wait. So shout out to my brother Ali Bey. Shout out to my brother Josh. I still can't hear you, Josh. I don't know what's going on, bro.
Is it the headset? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you and Will L perfectly fine.
All right. There was one thing I was trying to find. Let me see if I can locate it. Oh, you know what it is? The Abraham Lincoln speech, speaking on the Dred Scott case.
Okay, because we was definitely going to get into that as well.
Yeah,
we'll still get into that a little bit later, but right. I know that you wanted to. How does my mic sound? I have to get me a new microphone. Do I sound clear?
Sounds all right, great.
Cool. Now I got to see how it sounds on the playback. All right, we doing too much idle chatter on the live show. All right, y'all.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, cool. So, this is going to be a good topic tonight, people. We're going to really go in tonight. I want Brother Ali Bey to set it off. I want Josh to come in. I don't know if he's having some audio issues still. Oh, yeah, he hasn't fixed it yet. And then me and Where L is going to set off the second leg of this particular discussion. We're going to get into when did we become citizens, right? And which also ties into this argument of like Dred Scott and things of that nature, because we've been led to believe that the 14th Amendment made us citizens. And I'm gonna pull that up later, how it is believed that through the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, we were made citizens. But there's something that Noble Drew Ali said that led me into greater research. And I mean, you can't deny what's on the records of the Library of Congress. So, Brother Ali, whenever you're ready, you could share your screen and start going in. Again, my brother is gonna go in tonight on are we an ethnic majority or are we an ethnic minority? And as he brought this to our attention, I mean, I was astounded by the fact like we never broke it down like that. We never looked at it in that aspect before. So whenever you're ready, brother.
Give me like 1 more minute.
All right,
One
go
more
ahead, go ahead. So I mean, brother Will, did you want to speak to anything real quick?
Man, I think like, yo, this is gonna be a very good broadcast tonight. And people, you get your pens and your notepads out. There's gonna be some things that we're gonna say that you want to go back later when this is over with. You're going to want to look it up. You're going to research it. You're going to find, obviously, in the time that we're allotted, we don't have enough to just give you everything. But we're going to give you as much as we can. Take your pen, your notepad, and jot down as much as you can, and then go and research, because we're about to break some things open that reshape the paradigm on the way you look at race, the majority minority concept, and all of that tonight, you know?
Definitely, definitely. Shout out to ADOS, man. ADOS is in the building always. I want to give
ADOS.
a shout out to ADOS, man. Thank y'all for the support and honors to the group in general for causing us to elevate our political education so that we could bring y'all this type of content. So
Absolutely.
I definitely want to give a shout out to ADOS, man. Brother Josh, you still out? Josh is out, man.
That's crazy.
That's my brother. That's our brother with the business degree, man. He do the numbers for us. He crunched them numbers up real good, and he be going in like he my brother Josh just be going in. He goes in, man.
We
And
gotta get his audio right. You gotta fix it, Josh. Come on, yo. Hey, what ADO when you mentioned ADOS and you shouted them out, and what they have done, I don't think it's talked about enough, and the way that they have reshaped the framework and the narrative in which we look at our own history, in which we talk about our experience in this country, man. ADOS, shout out to Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell and all the ADOSers out there on the Twitter sphere and in the Facebook and just everywhere on the ground, everywhere. Y'all have, and we have done an amazing job with bringing this information to the forefront, particularly with the wealth data, and then just framing Black politics in a new way that I haven't seen since I've been alive. So I also want to, kind of camel back on what Abba said with the shout out with ADOS, man.
No doubt.
definitely, definitely. Yeah, you ready,
All
Ali?
right. So, yeah. What I'm gonna do, is share the screen. Hold on 1 second. Uh, Share the screen. Let me know if you guys can see this. Can you see the screen?
All right, there you go, bro.
All right. So this is the definition, and I wanted to start with the definition of ethnicity as is given from the Oxford Dictionary. And it says that the definition of ethnicity is the fact of belonging to a particular nation or people that shares a cultural tradition. Um, Hold on, let me give you the Google one as well. I'm going to show you what Google says. Google is also using Oxford as its source. Can you see it?
Yes, yes.
It says ethnicity. You see down here, it's from Oxford. The fact or state of belonging to a social group that has a common national or cultural tradition. And so when I was thinking about the numbers in terms of how Black oftentimes is counted and compared to other groups like Latino, white, Asian, whatever the case is, what we're beginning to hear is that Latinos as a group are surpassing blacks / African Americans in terms of numbers. And it got me to thinking about what it is that they're actually comparing. Are they comparing our numbers based on racial classifications, or are they comparing our numbers based on our ethnic groups? And then yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
you good now, Josh.
And then
wait, repeat that real quick, Brother Ali. You said they're comparing our numbers racially against ethnic groups?
What they're doing is they call black people a minority group, right? And I'm going to get into the definition of minority as well. But the thing about it is, why are they calling us a minority group? Is it a numerical minority, right? Because minority actually has another legal connotation to it as well, which I want to show in a few minutes. But if we're talking about a numerical minority, then you have to ask the question, how are black people and a numerical minority? What I came to realize is that the black was being used as the label for all people that they're calling black. They're also combining that and using it simultaneously with the term African American, which is actually an ethnic name. The name African American is an ethnic name it's a new ethnic name, pretty much a new ethnic name that comes about for the first time, I think maybe sometime in the 1700s, you first see it.
Because we got to be wait, real quick. We have to clarify that, because people believe that Jesse Jackson made up the term African American in the 1980s. So I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah, no, he didn't make that term up, but that term actually shows up for the first time in some document back in the 1700s. And originally, even when Jesse Jackson uses it, it's being used as an ethnonym that's specific to our tribe of people who come out of the institution of chattel slavery. And what we are basically is a new group of people coming out of that institution that are an amalgamation of various ethnic groups of people from Africa, as well as some European and some Native American ancestry. So we're a new group of people that was created through mixing, amalgamation of various ethnic groups or tribes of people from Africa, along with European and some Native American. And so that's, to me, what African American is supposed to be. It's an ethnic name, not a racial name. But what they do in census documents, like if you look at the census or federal directive, I don't know if it's in federal directive 15. Let me just look. Let me know if it switches over.
You might, yeah. I think every time you go to a new page, you have to switch over. That happened to me the last show when I was switching from Biden's black agenda to his Latin agenda. I thought the Latin agenda was coming up because the ethnicity piece is still on the screen right now.
All right, got it. So let me stop sharing, and then let me go to the next one, and I'll show you what this one is. I'll look at Federal Directive 15 and just see what it says.
Mm-hmm.
It may or may not.
No, go ahead. I just want to say to the people real quick, this is part of a debate why we wanted to open up with my brother Ali Bey tonight, that he's having with this one brother. I won't name him. He seemed like he a clout chaser anyway, but he's a professor. I don't know at what university that's, to me, anti-ADOS and anti-reparations. He's definitely anti-reparations.
He teaches at Howard, don't he, Ali?
Yeah, he's at Howard University.
And my brother Ali Bey.
Yeah, just call him out. Just call him out.
Okay, my brother Ali Bey. How y'all say in Chicago, where L? My brother Ali Bey just treating him like you the college professor getting school like you a little student.
Yeah.
So we thought that we bring this to the people tonight and just go in. Go ahead, brother Ali.
So they don't really. I'm looking at Federal Directive 15. They don't really have a lot on here about ethnicity that I see. But one of the interesting things, if you look at it, what you'll see is when they talk about black right here. Let me know if you guys can see this. Can
I
you see
mean,
this?
it's kind of
Is it
small
shared?
print, but we can see the screen though. But
All right, let me. I can bring it up. I can make it larger.
okay, there, yeah, perfect, perfect.
All right. So when you look at the racial groups, right? The basic racial and ethnic categories of federal statistics. What they do here, which is really funny, they say a black is a person having origins in any of the black racial groups, as if there are several racial groups in Africa. Several racial groups in Africa. But they don't do that with white. Notice they don't do that with white. White is one group. So even within using the terminology of race, they are playing games with breaking down the so-called one black race into multiple racial groups, which they don't do with white, they don't do with Hispanic, they don't do with anything else. The black is broken down. And so what I realize is that what they're doing in the United States is they're combining, let me stop sharing this. They're combining black with African American as if it's all one and the same thing. And the problem with that, why that's the problem, is because what they're able to do is take our single ethnic group, African American, which they're like 40, at least 42 million African Americans in the United States, at least. And that's based on census numbers. And it's not even counting, I'm sure, many African Americans who choose not to fill out the census because for whatever reason, maybe they don't want the white man in their house, in their business, or whatever the case is. But you know how our people are. A lot of times it's like, I don't want to put my information out there and have these people all in my business. So there are a lot of our people who don't fill out the census. So based on the ones who do, you're looking at least 42 million based on the last census documents regarding this. Now, the thing about it is they're combining African American / black. You know how you see black / African American all on one thing, black / African American. The problem with that is that African American is actually an ethnic group. But when they do Latino or when they do white and count the numbers, what they're doing is they're combining multiple ethnic groups together to make this one thing called Latino. And so when they say Latinos outnumber African Americans, what they're saying is Puerto Ricans plus Cubans plus Dominicans plus Mexicans plus whatever other quote unquote Latino group, ethnic group there is, when they combine them all together, they outnumber the one ethnic group called African American. That's tricknology, because if you wanted to really compare numbers, you would compare how many Puerto Ricans there are to how many African Americans there are, how many Dominican Americans there are compared to how many African Americans, how many English, if you want to go into the white race, how many English Americans there are compared to African Americans, how many Italian Americans there are compared to African Americans. So what they're doing is they're actually comparing their racial numbers, which is comprised of multiple ethnic groups, to our single ethnic group called African American / black, and they put it all together and to throw us off, to make us think that it's a fair comparison. It's actually a false and faulty comparison. That's the so when you look at the numbers of the various ethnic groups in the United States, what you're going to see is that there's no other ethnic group in the United States that outnumbers African Americans, according to the census, other than what they're saying in their records are German Americans.
So wait, hold on. Let's
go ahead.
So basically, German Americans are, if we are breaking peoples down by groups, the only race that really outnumbers African Americans, our tribe, ADOS, not race, but ethnicity is German American.
Ethnic group. That's right.
Allegedly.
Wow, that's
Allegedly.
powerful.
And
Isn't that?
the problem with that is you're going to have a lot of overlap. So you're going to have people that may be part German, part French, claiming to be German too. So now you having this overlap of ethnic groups claiming both things. And if I believe that those numbers are cooked, I believe that German Americans do not outnumber African Americans. I believe because of the overlap and amalgamation of the different European groups that you have people claiming multiple things. And I believe also that the census is cooking the numbers. And I believe that what plays a part in them pretending that German Americans outnumber us is, like I said before, the fact that many African Americans don't fill out the census. So that
Brother Marlon Watson says, so arguably we could be one of the largest ethnic groups in America.
Arguably we are the largest.
We are
the largest ethnic group in the United States. Puerto Ricans don't outnumber African Americans. Dominicans don't outnumber. If you just go through, let me share this. Hold on. I'm gonna find the link. I'm gonna find the link so that we can share it.
Go ahead now.
But what you gonna say?
Yeah, I think that's a powerful. I know until we started building on it, I had never really heard that idea put out there. You know, that we are in fact the largest ethnic group. So, and it kind of takes the power away. You know, because and it's funny. Power away because it's like it's no whiteness, it's no oneness of whiteness.
Wait, real quick. The sister commented, Antonia Edwards said, I currently work for the census. He's absolutely correct.
Wow.
Go ahead, Brother Josh. And you can add on to where L while he's pulling that up.
No doubt.
Yeah, go ahead, bro. Go ahead. But I just think that was powerful. I think that's powerful because what gives whiteness is power. Well, one of the things is the fact that they have strength in numbers, but when you break the numbers down, like, no, you ain't white, you have your ethnicity, it's you don't get to be white. You get to be what you put on the census. And that's then stripping away that status. Of course, it's still the economic part, but just that that's used to oppress us. So, I think that's powerful. That's something we definitely need to build on.
Absolutely. And, I think it really speaks to what is the overwhelming problem, which is the race classification in and of itself, right? Ethnicity and ethnic groups are very specific. This racial classification is a fiction that provides the opportunity to just incorporate different people into your group. And it bleeds through all different kind of lines. It happens with Black and it happens with white. And so we see that being very problematic. See, when you talk about ethnicity, it becomes more clear, right? It's less convoluted. So if you just say white, and we've already talked about how certain individuals had to earn that status of white. When the Irish first got here, they were Irish. They were not white. They had to work and earn to be white. When the Italians got here, they were not white. They had to earn the right to be white and be incorporated into that classification. When the Jews got here, they were not white. They had to work and be incorporated into that classification. So we see that working on that end, and it has ways that is proven to be problematic in how we look at who is really a majority and who's a minority. And then we see how how it works on the opposite end for so-called Black folks, how our specificity gets convoluted because not everybody's Black. So it works one way on the white spectrum, and it works in another way on the Black spectrum. So now everyone gets to call themselves Black. So now there's no specificity, and we get lost in all the Blackness. So
let me just say,
I'm glad he brought that up.
Let me go to a wide screen real quick. This book right here, White by Law. Y'all see me mention this book all the time. This book right here is a must read, particularly in the context of what we're speaking about tonight. And like I said, we're gonna do a series based off of this show and this topic. But I want to read something real quick before my brother Ali Bey gets back in. This book is written by a man named Ian Haney Lopez, and he says this on page 2, chapter White Lines. He says, "I conclude that whiteness exists at the vortex of race in U.S. law and society, and that whites should renounce their racial identity as it is currently constituted in the interest of social justice. This chapter introduces the ideas I developed throughout the book." Another book y'all always hear me cite is Theodore W. Allen's The Invention of the White Race, Volume 1 and Volume 2. These are important in understanding race. And again, y'all know I'm a Moorish brother that followed that Moorish prophet out of Chicago, Noble Ali. And I'll tell people all the time, I don't know what y'all heard about those Moors. We are not those Moors. We follow Noble Drew Ali for real. And it is his research that led us here. There's also something else you can look up called critical race theory. This term was coined, I believe, in the 1970s. When you look that up and then you start looking into the teachings of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, you're going to have to admit this man been on this since the early 1900s. So let me bring my bros back in. I'm going to add.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, this is a link that Brother Josh sent us in the inbox. Let me know if I need to make it larger.
Yeah, blow it up a little bit, bro.
There you go.
That's good?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. So this is an excellent link that shows exactly what we're talking about. It's a list of ethnic groups in the United States by household income. The interesting thing, I'm going to scroll down so you can see what happens. They have race, and then underneath it, they go ancestry, which the ancestry is dealing with the different ethnic groups in the United States. But look what they do with race: Asian, white, all races, Pacific Islander, Hispanic or Latino, American Indian or Alaskan Native, black or African American. They put African American as a race. They put African American as a race as opposed to an ethnicity, which it actually is. Go ahead, bro.
No, I was just reiterating as opposed to an ethnicity.
Right. And then down here, they have a whole list of ethnic groups in the United States broken down by household income. Indian American or Hindu American, that's what they're talking about. Australian American, South African American, Taiwanese American, Filipino American, all the way down. It's a whole list. Nigerian American, Lebanese American, Scandinavian American.
And make sure y'all are looking at the money next to those Americans. And then when you get down to African American, watch out.
But the interesting thing is
there is no African American on the list. That's the
there is no African American on this list.
Oh wow! They don't even put us on the list.
They even got Jamaican American. They got Moroccan American, but they're not talking about Moorish Americans.
They're not talking about the
Moroccan Americans. Peruvian Americans, all the way down. It's a whole long list.
Wow.
And it ends with Somali American. You got Dominican American, Iraqi American, you got Puerto Rican American. But see, what they don't do, this is the household income. But what I was really looking at was how they designate us as a numerical minority. The problem is African American is not a numerical minority when you look at it as an ethnic group. It's not a racial group. A racial group includes multiple ethnicities from around the world. Like, so the white racial group can include people who are European that live in Europe someplace. It can include North Africans like the brother Mustafa Hefni, who's an Egyptian, right? So all of them North Africans are considered white by American classifications of whiteness. Even certain Latinos are able to choose, and this is adding to their white numbers. Latinos are able to choose their Puerto Rican ancestral names or ethnic names, and then claim to at the same time be members of the white race. So they
let me interject real quick because you brought up Mustafa Hefni. Please, everybody, look up this man's case. It was a case that was brought in 1996. This is a brother that came from Egypt. He was a brother. He looked like one of us. He tried to access the SBA for a small business loan. They literally told this man, you just can't waltz in from Africa claiming to be black. He said, I'm sorry, you're white. And this dude is like, white? What are you talking about? I'm black. The SBA was like, no, I'm sorry, you're white. So,
right.
like when we start getting into race, we got to start looking at these things for really what it is. Also, Brother Ali Bey brought up Federal Directive 15. If you look up Federal Directive 15 right now, people, if you Google it, it gives you a header that says these classifications are not based on anything scientific or anthropological in nature. So if they're not basing it on science and they're not basing it on anthropology, there's only one thing that they can be basing it off of, and that is socio-political status. Point blank, period. There's nothing else. And that's what this book, White by Law, is breaking down to a T. The author is mentioning what's called the prerequisite cases. And these cases were the ones that establish who would actually become white in America. As Brother Ali Bey mentioned, I'm going to start calling you the professor. As the professor mentioned earlier, he was talking about the different people that had to fight and struggle to get over here. So Yvette Carnell did a show called When the Irish Was White, or Before the Irish Came White, or something to that effect.
How the Irish became white.
How the Irish became white. And there was a book done on that. It was part of the book club. So we sit there listening. So we already know like a lot of this stuff because we read and have read books like Theodore W. Allen's The Invention of the White Race, and did a lot of the background research on it. So definitely, I'm gonna bring my brother Ali Bey back in, and so he could go over minority law and legal definition.
Right. So here's what from U.S. legal. I was going to pull up a Black's Law Dictionary definition, but I think that this pretty much corresponds with the Black's Law Dictionary. So the legal definition of the term minority, there's two: the state or condition of being under legal age, which is not the context that they're using when they're talking about us as a group. Also, a group that does not constitute a politically dominant voting majority of the total population in a given society. This group is different in some respect from the majority and may get treated differently because of that. For example, a minority religion refers to a religion held by a minority of the population of the country. So basically what they're talking about is a numerical minority. So again, just to go back to the original point, let me stop sharing that. To go back to the original point, to me, it's a trick, it's a con to compare our ethnic group to other racial groups, because Latino in essence is a racial name. White is a racial name, right? So Latino is just a more modern name that replaced the older name brown. You know, when it came up with the colorized racial classifications, it was black, brown, red, white, and yellow. So instead of calling people yellow, they call them Asians. Instead of calling people brown, they call them Latinos or Latinx now. Instead of calling people red men, they call them Native Americans or Indians. The only people that still are caught with that colorized thing are our people and people of European descent, North African descent, and certain Latin American people who will claim white as their racial classification. But again, the point I'm really trying to drive the people is to start rolling back this idea that we are a minority group, because what they're doing is they're putting all of their groups together, whether it's Irish American, German American, English American, they're grouping them all together as white, and then putting those numbers against the one African American ethnic group, and we're just one ethnic group, and they're comparing us to multiple ethnic groups and coming up with this thing about we're a minority, and it's just not true. It's a trick. That's
No.
the only point I was really trying to make with.
And I wanted to build on that, Ali, because I think what happens is when we look at the wealth data and we look at how we position in there. I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna bring back up what you were talking about earlier. Let me just share it here. Let me bring up this right here, because I think this is what you were trying to show. Can y'all see it? Do I need to zoom in a little
Yeah,
bit?
you can expand it a little bit more.
All right, let me see. How do I zoom? Yeah, I wish I knew how to zoom.
Go to your what you on?
Chrome.
Oh no, you're on a iMac, right?
No, this is a Dell, a PC.
Oh. Just go to Zoom. Hit that red button in the upper right-hand corner. Click
Right
on
here.
that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right there.
Oops.
There you go.
All right, cool. So let me just go down a little bit. Appreciate the technical assistance. All right. I think I know what's going on here. All right, I didn't mean to do that.
Codes and
I don't need that much technical assistance. All right, so here it is. This is American Community Survey, the 20 largest ancestry groups in the United States. So this is and I guess they consider these ethnic groups, right? So German is number one, like Ali Bey said, 46 million people of German ethnicity. Then they put Black African American here as 38. Is 38. So we would be 12%. And again, that's only with 38 million. That's not the 40 something million that we probably have. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to juxtapose that against if we looked at it by wealth. Man, hold on a second. This is not what I was. This is not. Oh yeah, this is what I wanted to show. Because we want to look at it based on countries. Because a lot of times you hear people come out with the arguments, well, if we were to be a country, we'd be one of the more wealthier countries in the world.
Our people, meaning our group, the African Americans, as we're called.
Right, or ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery. If we were, we hear all these arguments about our buying power, and what if we were a whole country, we would be bigger than a lot of these countries. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of problems with that. First off, we live in the richest country in the world, which is very expensive to live here. We don't have, if we could take the money, the income and the wealth we had here and spend it in some of these other countries, yeah, we would have a higher position. But in America, based on what we had at the bottom. So what you're looking at, let me just go all the way back to the top. What you're looking at is median wealth per adult. Now, that's not household, that's per adult. Okay, and this is in US dollars. All right. So you can see Switzerland is number one. Switzerland has the highest median wealth per adult. And you look at a lot of these countries up here, and you see that United States is number 22 at 65,000. And you try to figure out, well, where would we be? So I went and looked up. Now this is not going to be a 100% updated, accurate number, but I went and looked up if we rank Black America as a separate nation. And this is as a 2014 study done by Credit Suisse. And because we know the updated numbers, the more updated numbers, I believe in 2016, talking about median household wealth being $1,700 without depreciating assets. But we're talking about, this is a different metric. It's talking about median wealth per Black American adult. And he said this is $4,995. So if we're trying to say we're Americans, let me go back over here. If we're trying to say we're Americans, to be American, you need to be 65,904. That's the
Hey, wait! Before you go in, remember I had the debate with the brother Reggie from Harlem on Sonetta TV the other night, and remember I broke down the numbers for the spending of 2018 just by people called whites alone in America, and it came out right to around that number almost exactly. So that's really interesting.
So if you're trying to say, because I had debate on my Facebook earlier, and it was a close person to me, and he was saying that well, we're the wealthiest Africans in the world. So first off, I had to say, well, maybe somewhat culturally and maybe genealogically we're Africans, but as far as politically and economically, I would say we're not. We just have to be honest. We're Americans. We're an amalgamation, and that's what makes us a unique ethnic group here. But so if we're not Americans, then who are we? And the reason why I brought up that African issue is because you can look at some of these African countries on here, and their median wealth per adult. Let's look at Seychelles. Let's look at Aruba. These are the other quote unquote black countries. You look at Mauritius. Now I know a lot of that is like offshore banking and all of that kind of stuff, and rich people going to islands, Barbados, Bahamas. But that still looks like if we're about 5,000, that's 4 times our wealth. So okay, we don't have Bahamas level wealth. We don't have Lebanon or even Costa Rican. Costa Rican is over double the ADOS or the ADOS household wealth. Median wealth per adult. So which country do we more resemble? It's Peru. We're really Peruvian. We will be 100th on the list out of how many countries? Out of 171 countries, we will be 100th. And then we the group that built America, and we living in the richest country in the world. So I just want people to understand that you got to break this down. Like, we're not American. We're Peruvian. We're Peruvian. We're
Peruvian.
We're 1/4
money, family.
We're half of a Mexican.
Crazy.
We're half of a Mexican. We're let me go back up. Yeah, we're 1/4 of a Chinese person will. So that's the kind of conversation we need to have.
Definitely.
I just want to share that.
Hey Josh, can you pull the link that you had up that shows the ethnic group by numbers in terms of population count? Like right before that one, you were just showing it.
This one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. See how they combine Black or African American into one thing. And everybody else is broken down. Even though you see how you see Polish and French and Dutch and Norwegian and Irish and English, all those people would be considered part of the white race, right? But they're gonna put Black and African American all together.
Non-Hispanic. So look, if you look like one of us, but you're from Puerto Rico or Cuba, they link you in with Black or African American. They link you in with the Cuban ethnic group, the Puerto Rican ethnic group. So this is a really, really interesting find, and it forces us to look at things from a different perspective. Brother Where you wanted to
think about this real quick.
Go ahead, Ali.
Think about this. We have Afro-Latina people. Look at like Amara La Negra, right? People like this, right? Who phenotypically will be considered quote unquote Black. Also, when you have all of these people who come into the United States and submerge themselves in our culture as African Americans, these people are becoming African Americans because they're now sharing our cultural heritage with us. And they become African Americans by extension of that sharing. And so the numbers are actually greater than what they're saying. You can look at I was just looking at a Pew Research piece where they were talking about, this is from 2018, an article done in 2018, where they talk about more than 40 million Blacks live in the United States. Even that, so what I think they're doing, like you see here, it says 38 million. Right, and you keep seeing these different numbers. One thing will say this, one thing will say that. But to me, they're doing that because they want us to believe that somehow we're underneath all these other people. But even if you look at the way they have it here, they have us as number 2, right? The numbers I saw say 42 million. And in terms of German Americans, I think it was more closer to 44 million. But so I'm just saying they're doing that. So and then when they count the racial thing, they're gonna put English and everybody together with the Germans so they can say, yo, we are 60% of the population. That's just a fallacious, it's a false comparison. False comparison.
Definitely, brother. Where L, you wanted to add on to that?
Absolutely, man. That was such great information y'all brothers just broke down. And I hope y'all took the advice at the beginning of the show and it got your pen and your notepads and was taken down and gonna do research after. I want to say two things real quick. One, if you remember back when brother Ali was talking first, how he went to the ancestry part and went through all the categories, and then you did not have African American or Black on the ancestry. I don't think you understand how damning that is and how destructive that is. So what they're saying on an official census and an accounting and a record is that you don't have no ancestry. You ain't nobody. Who are you if you don't have your ancestry is your roots into this country and into existence? So who are you if you don't have no ancestry? So you mean to tell me everybody has an official ancestry account but us? You acknowledge us on one, talking about this fiction called race classification. And then on the other end, which is rooted in realness, reality, nonfiction, which is the ancestry part. You can't get around ancestry. Don't even mention us. Don't have a category for us. So basically, they telling you in that representation how insignificant we are as a people, or how much they regard or think that we're insignificant. They didn't even put us as having ancestry, people. The brother just showed the data. They basically said we don't have ancestry. I'm still blown away by that. We don't have ancestry. Everyone has an ancestor but us. But we know why they did that. So we're gonna go to the next. I'm gonna go to the next thing that I wanted to say. So when we talking about the problems with the race classification system and our position in the race classification system, those brothers just, masterfully showed the data, explained the situation. And now what I want to do is just kind of pull out a particular situation on how everybody has these different scenarios that they can benefit from. They can be German in one sense, white in another sense. They can be French in one sense, white in another sense, and both at the same time at some instances. But the African Americans, not only do we have no ancestry according to these people, but we're only one thing. Everybody else can be German and white, or white at one point and say, I'm not German if it don't suit them. They can say, I'm just white, or I'm German and white. So they can use this type of scenario and this type of framing to be whatever they want at any given time that benefits them. We do not have that option. And it's not just for white folks. We also saw how they had Haitian Americans in the ancestry portion, no African American in the ancestry portion. So you can be Haitian in one moment and Black and African American in the next instant. How is that possible? We can't do that. There's no place for us to do that, right? So we don't understand the problem in being the problem of ADOSness, right? Is that we do not have the ancestry that everyone else has to tie into politically and geographically. We don't have it. We are the most American group that exists, because even the Native Americans can say we're Native American and we're American citizens as well. They can benefit from both of those statuses. No, we're the only people in the world that are in this conundrum. We can only be American descendants of slavery. We can only be foundational Black Americans. We can't be Haitian when we want to be Haitian, when we tired of, those niggas over in America getting beat up too much. We're going to just be Haitian today. We can't be that. Then you have people like Fat Joe. You have people like Busta Rhymes. You have people like what's Cardi B. They all can say, I'm tired of people questioning my blackness. Well, we have to question your blackness. Your blackness ain't the same as mine. All I get to do is black. And they just showed you that. I don't even get no ancestry. I don't get to be nothing else but black. So you can't say that you black as me. And that's how the confusion gets settled. You got to understand this. You're not as black as me because history tells the tale. And you can be Dominican Republic in one instant, and then when it benefits you and suits you, you can be black. You can be Jamaican in one instance, and then when it benefits and suits you, you can be black. You can be Puerto Rican in one instance, and then when it benefits and suits you, you can be black. But we don't have that liberty. We are the original Americans, and we built the richest country in the world. And I send it back to you, Evan.
Yeah,
Definitely.
can I jump in?
Go ahead, brother Josh.
Yeah, I want to jump in on and kind of build on that, right? Because basically what you're saying, and just to make it clear for everybody, what he's saying is there's ethnicity and there's race. So they're saying that we get to have a race, but we don't get to have an ethnicity. And the whole thing, I'm gonna bring this screen back up again. I'm gonna go to this one right here. This is where we brought up. This is median household income by ethnicity. Now they saying ancestry. We talk is really
hold on. I got the wrong screen up.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. It's up.
Okay, yeah. So this is median household income by ethnicity. This is not wealth, this is income. So what we're saying is, look, they have race up here. So we get to have a race, Black or African American. But what they're saying is we don't get to have an ethnicity. And what we're saying is an ethnicity is specificity. So when they don't put us on here, that's a problem. Because then like we get blended in. Because let me now I hate that I'm not, we got to just keep it real. When you see something like Ghanaian American, peace to my Ghanaian family. When you see something like I think is way up here too. When you see something like where's Nigeria now?
I see it. It's right there, number 17.
Nigerian American, peace to my Nigerian family, right? However, if you were to show with the ADOS median household income is somewhere, it's going to be at the bottom. It's going to be somewhere down here. Somebody find
it. I had put one in the chat. Man, this was like maybe 2 months ago where they actually break that down, and we were in fact at the bottom. If I'm not mistaken, we were either at the very bottom or second to last.
Yeah, well, it's at the top. If you look at
what they're saying is we don't even get to get counted. So I just want to make this point real quick. That's why, number one, it's important on the census for you to put Black, African American as race, right? You can fill that in because they only give you a few choices to fill in, but then they let you write in additional information. And what you need to write in under that additional information is your ethnicity, and that is ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery. That's what you need to write in.
That's right.
That's how we don't even get counted on here because they don't count us because for so long it was no a bunch of breakdown because before the 1960 census it was only anybody that was not ADOS, your numbers of population in the U.S. was less than 1%. That means we were over 99%, and the large percentage of everybody else got here after 1980. So what happens is when they're counting the 75,000 and the 66,000 and all these other ones, what that's doing is that's inflating our numbers. So when they need to address give us policy, they will like, well, your numbers are good. You're right around average America. No, we're not. We're at the bottom, but we need to be represented at the bottom. We need something that tells us that we have a specific ethnic group, and that's all I wanted to share.
Hey, share this screen.
All right, I'm gonna bring you up. Let me read this real quick. Brother Marlon Watson put up.
Oh yeah.
He says, race is the street we all live on as Black people. Ethnicity is the house on the street each group lives in. Until ADOS, we were homeless on Black Street. Now, I agree, and I kind of disagree, right? And of course, y'all know where I'm going to come from with it, which leads into this one brother, Issa El Makdi. I'm going to call you what you are to me. You an antagonist, bro. But still in all, you raise a pretty good question. He says, Way L, that he's addressing me for those that don't know. You're denying you're a Moorish American, Asiatic, or more. There's nothing in anything that I say which denies that. Prophet No, and speaking to Brother Marlon Watson's comment and this brother's comment, Issa El Makdi, there's a reason why Noble Drew Ali gave us this ethnic designation of Moorish American. My brother, where L was breaking down how other people have another ethnicity to fall back on or another nationality to fall back on. If you understand, and I'm like I said, one of these days I'm going to do a show called Who Are the Moorish Americans? And I'm going to break this stuff down. And this is what, in understanding and analyzing everything my brothers are presenting here tonight, for me, I get a greater understanding of why Prophet Noble Drew Ali said you are not Negroes, you are not Black folks, you are not colored people. He said because these names delude to slavery, that they were given to us during the times of slavery. So from henceforth, you will call yourselves Moorish Americans. But they messed that man's movement up, in my opinion, and it sprung out a whole bunch of offspring, crazy, nonsensical groups that talk a whole bunch of nonsensical nonsense about sovereignty and not driving with driver's licenses. And this is our land.
It's a bunch of irrelevant stuff. Like all that stuff is irrelevant and it doesn't mean anything.
Basically.
And so their problem is, before I even read this piece,
right, go ahead.
In relation to where L's thing, comments, their problem is that they don't recognize that if Moorish American is supposed to be a nationality, which I mean, there's stuff to that, but let's say Moorish American is a nationality as it was presented. Nationality doesn't conflict with ethnicity. Nationality doesn't conflict with race. These are different ways of looking at groupings of people. So a national group can have many subgroups underneath it. Say, for instance, Nigerian. If you look at the Nigerian national group, you're going to see they have Igbo and this one, Yoruba, and this and this, and there's multiple ethnic groups underneath the name Nigerian. The name Nigerian then falls as a nationality, falls under the racial name called Black, right? So that's if you're going to go by racial names, that would fall under Black. That's why I said before in the beginning that African American is not a racial designation. It is an ethnic name for the group of people in the United States that descend from slavery, right? We're using ADOS now.
That's right.
But originally, African American was supposed to do the job that the name ADOS is doing now. So that's what I'm saying. There's no conflict. Like people like Issa don't understand this, right? Because they've been making these same kinds of arguments for a long time, right? And they're irrelevant because they don't understand the difference between an ethnic name, the difference between a national name, between a tribal or even the racial grouping of a whole bunch of people of a certain phenotype. They're not looking at this stuff in that way. So, just to be argumentative, you deny your Moorish ancestry. So let me read the legal definition of the thing I shared on the screen. So Brother Where I was talking about, we don't have an ancestry. There's a legal term for that. It comes from the medieval Latin. It's called filius nullius or nullius filius. It's an illegitimate child, or as it says in medieval Latin, literally no one's son. No one's son. So that's what they're really saying. And actually, they use that terminology. I don't know if it was in the Dred Scott case, but I know that the terminology nullius filius or filius nullius was used with regard to the descendants of slavery, saying that we're no one's sons, that we're a bunch of illegitimate children, basically. So to that just really speaks to the piece that Brother Where L was talking about. We don't get to have an ancestry.
Man, boy, they historically and politically then turned us into bastards.
Fact.
And that they were
Right.
being nice by calling it this nice Latin term that you introduced me to. I never heard that.
Hey,
But
wait,
where I'm
real
from,
quick.
they say that's a bastard.
Yo,
You know what I mean?
but you know that's bastard is like a biblical term.
Absolutely.
Also for people that was not in the Israelitish congregation. So I believe that has some Christian connotation to it as well. So we're going to move into the second leg of our show tonight. We're going to get into this. Are we citizens? And when did we become citizens? I'm
Brother Abba,
I
can I read some real quick that
okay.
I wanted to, can you pull my screen up? I wanted to just say this. This is in connection with what Josh was saying, right? When he was talking about the immigration and everything like that. I just really want to throw this out there because people say a lot of stuff about immigrants and how there's this flat blackness and all of this and all of that. I just want to really just read what is on the ADOS 101 website, and it is under the title Roadmap to Reparations. Okay. And it says, effectively, this would limit, this is under the subtitle, who should get reparations? Because everyone has a problem with the reparation claims only going to American descendants of slavery. I'm just going to read this real quick just to try to drive home what Brother Josh was saying. It says, effectively, this would limit reparations solely to those people who have lineage that ties them both to slavery in the United States and the subsequent era of Jim Crow. And any black immigrant who came to the United States voluntarily after slavery would not be eligible to receive reparations. The distinction is critical since a sizable number of black immigrants, in fact, arrived in the U.S. following Black America's most historically significant and economically detrimental periods that occurred prior to the civil rights movement. In fact, few, if any, voluntary black immigrants outside of students were in the United States prior to the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965. As shown by the Smithsonian, before 1965, black people of foreign birth residing in the United States were nearly invisible. According to the 1960 census, since we're talking about census tonight, their percentage of the population was to the right of a decimal point. Importantly, this pre-1965 group of black immigrants mostly originated from the Caribbean, and as such would have their own particular claims to make against European nations for the harms they suffered based on the slavery instituted within the Caribbean country of origin. Now that's all I want to read on that. And we can get off of this screen, and I just wanted to throw that. Josh was talking, that made me think about that. And it only makes sense. It only makes sense, people, that reparations, if you don't understand it, let me tell you, is for a specific harm perpetrated on a specific group by a specific people or institution or government. So it doesn't get this sundry application. Reparations isn't just this thing you just throw out for everybody. It has to be some specificity in that thing.
That's right.
And that's why I wanted to read that. So we can continue.
All right, definitely. Can you close that screen out?
All right, let me close that out. My bad.
I want to read real quick. I want to get into the second leg of our discussion. I want to get into this citizenship question, and we can try to run through that real quick, and then just have a general conversation. So I'm gonna read, and then we're gonna get into some of like the supporting evidence, and then I want Brother Ware L to also go in on that. Then of course, we all gonna go in on that as well. So y'all know I gotta pull up the man, Noble Drew Ali, because it's because of him that I'm on the political path that I'm on, right? And a lot of people, they never understood that, even in the Moorish movement. It was like, well, where have y'all been this whole time? Because we've been on looking at this thing for what it is. And because of that, we received a lot of hate, to use that word, Okay, this is from Prophet Noble Drew Ali's A Divine Warning from the Prophets for the Nation. I'm not going to read this whole thing. But I am going to start with this. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classified as undesirables. And this goes to those Moors. Y'all know what I've been calling them over the years. The kooky Moors that be talking all of this non-citizen stuff. Prophet Noble Drew Ali, he's never, ever said any of the stuff that these guys be talking about. So I'm going to skip through.
Hey, bro, can you zoom in a little bit?
Okay, hold on. Let me zoom in. Okay, so let me see. I'm gonna scroll down to. He talks about there's but one issue for them to be recognized by this government, and he talks about the Moorish Divine National Movement, which is incorporated in the government. He then says, and through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights. This is the part that I really want to point out. Unmolested by other citizens so that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under the free national constitution of the state's government and not under a granted privilege, as has been the existing condition for many generations. And we're going to kind of get into that aspect of it. And let me see. He says this. He says, money does not make the man. It is free national standards and power that makes a man in the nation. But then he says, the wealth of all national governments, gold and silver and commerce belong to the citizens alone. And without your national citizenship by name and principles, you have no true wealth. I am hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free government and the enforcement of the Constitution to help me in my great missionary work, because I need all support from all true American citizens. Now, remember, y'all, he's saying this in the 1920s. So he says, I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. He's not talking about some sovereignty, we own the land nonsense. He says, help me to save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of government. I am depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our free national constitution of the United States of America. I love my people, and I desire their unity and mine back to their own free national and divine standards. So he's basically, and I wanted to throw that in there so that people could see, number one, that Prophet Noble Drew Ali came to Chicago in 1925, and he started to teach civics to our people. He got them involved in local government. This is why they were able to elect Oscar the Priest to the Congress in 1928. That 1928 election, one of the first brothers actually elected into Congress after they were all ran out, starting with the 1877 compromise. There's a back history here that I'm going to get into one of these shows. So the next thing I want to bring up is Dred Scott. Let's bring up Dred Scott. This is from the dissent of Justice Curtis. There were two dissenting opinions in the Dred Scott case. One came from Justice Curtis, one came from Justice McLean. So let me do a screen share real quick. Okay, let me read. This is one of the dissenters of Justice Curtis. Now, and I want to preface this by saying that there's a belief that our citizenship begins with the 14th Amendment. This is false, which is another reason why I wanted to read Prophet Noble Drew Ali, who said, help me bring my people back into the constitutional folds, because they have fallen from it. If they fell from it, that means that there was a time that they were once there, and then something happened that they were no longer a part of the constitutional unfold, which is why he had a problem with these terms, Negro, black, and colored, something that we have, I think, unequivocally pointed out its problematic nature tonight. So let me read from Justice Curtis, one of the dissenters in Scott v. Sanford. And this is from the Supreme Court case. It says, on 25th of June, 1778, the Articles of Confederation under consideration by Congress, the delegates from South Carolina moved to amend this fourth article by inserting after the word free and before the word inhabitants, the word white, so that the privileges and immunities, and let me blow this up a little bit more just in case y'all can't see it. And so that the privileges and immunities, excuse me, I just lost it, of general citizenship would be secured only to white persons. 2 states voted for the amendment, 8 states against it, and the vote of 1 state was divided. The language of the article stood unchanged, and both by its terms of inclusion, quote, free inhabitants, end quote, and the strong implication from its terms of inclusion, paupers, vagabonds, and fugitives from justice, i.e. runaway slaves, who alone were accepted, it is clear that under the Confederation and at the time of the adoption of the Constitution, free colored persons of African descent might be, and by reason of their citizenship in certain states, were entitled to the privileges and immunities of general citizenship of the United States. He clears this up later on in his dissent. So then he asks a question. You know, the question gets begged. Did the Constitution of the United States deprive them or their descendants of citizenship? He answers that question. The Constitution was ordained and established by the people of the United States through the action in each state of those persons who were qualified by its laws to act thereon in behalf of themselves and all other citizens of that state. In some of the states, as we have seen, colored persons were among those qualified by law to act on this subject. These colored persons were not only included in the body of, quote, the people of the United States, end quote, by whom the Constitution was ordained and established, but in at least 5 of the states, they had the power to act and doubtless did act by their suffrages, meaning their votes, for those who don't know what that word means, upon the question of its adoption. It would be strange if we were to find in that instrument, meaning the Constitution, anything which deprived them of their citizenship, any part of the people of the United States who were among those by whom it was established. He says, I can find nothing in the Constitution which proprio vigore, which means by its own force or its own vigor, deprives of their citizenship any class of persons who were citizens of the United States at the time of its adoption, or who should be native-born citizens of any state after its adoption, nor any power enabling Congress to disenfranchise persons born on the soil of any state and entitled to citizenship of such state by its constitution and laws. And my opinion is that under the Constitution of the United States, every free person born of the soil of a state who is a citizen of that state by force of its constitution or laws is also a citizen of the United States. And he goes, Justice Curtis, he goes so much deeper into breaking down how not only were we had the right of suffrage, in northern states. He said that we had that same right in southern states. And my brother Ali Bey, and I hope you have that article on deck. I tried to pull it up, but it was on my Facebook page, so I kind of lost it. From out of the congressional globe from the 1800s, there was a debate about our citizenship, and the representatives from the North absolutely destroyed the arguments from the representatives from the South. But there was one man, I believe his last name was Kent, who said that the Negro was in fact a citizen but a citizen with disabilities. So, brother, where L, did you want me to share this screen that you have up?
Yeah, you can share that. That's fine.
Okay.
All right, and I just want to kind of frame that. You talked about the judicial system and their debate about it, right? And I'm going to go into what the executive head at that time opinion was. So we see that there's all kind of dispute between the justices, Justice Taney, Justice Curtis, and even more justices than that we don't have enough time allotted in this program to go into the entire argument. But I'm going to just highlight some things that Abraham Lincoln said, who was the president at that time. And back then, reflects what's going on today on how we use these race relations to try to play politics with the people. Listen to what Abraham Lincoln had to say about that. He said, there is a natural disgust in the minds of nearly all white people to the idea of a indiscriminate amalgamation of the white and black races. And Judge Douglas evidently is basing his chief hope upon the chances of being able to appropriate the benefit of this disgust to himself. This is how he's making that a political argument. If you don't know who Douglas is, he was running for office. All right. So if he can, by much drumming and repeating, fasten the odium of that idea upon his adversaries, he thinks he can struggle through the storm. He therefore clings to this hope as a drowning man to the last plank. He makes an occasion for lugging it in from the opposition to the Dred Scott decision. He finds the Republicans insisting that the Declaration of Independence includes all men, black as well as white, and forthwith he boldly denies that it includes Negroes at all, and proceeds to argue gravely that all who contend it does do so only because they want to vote and eat and sleep and marry with Negroes. He will have it that they cannot be they cannot be consistent else. Now I protest against that counterfeit logic, which concludes that because I do not want a black woman for a slave, I must necessarily want her for a wife. I need not have her for either. I can just leave her alone. In such respects, she certainly is not my equal, but in her natural right to eat the bread she earns with her own hands without asking leave of anyone else, she is my equal and the equal of all others. I think that is very important and speaks to the very nature of America, since American society, and white folks and black folks dynamics and politics. So I think that is so Lincoln is basically saying they're using the racial dynamics and race. This is how they use the pandering to the race, how you hear it today. Douglas was basically saying anyone who thinks white folks are equal to black folks, or that black folks should have full citizenship, they just have some type of lustful desire for black women and whatnot. That's basically what he's saying. And Lincoln is saying, listen, I just think that whoever works and produces should be able to benefit from that profit. That's it. He's saying, I don't want no black woman. I'm just saying if the sister's working, she should be able to reap the benefits of her own labor. This is the type of equality that we're all seeking. A lot of people have gotten this confused somehow with this weird attraction, or I've heard a lot of arguments with Dr. King's ending segregation and moving us into integration, saying that, oh, that was somehow us just wanting to be closer to white folks. And this just really speaks to how people really don't understand what we're doing here. what was going on then and what was going on with Dr. King and what's going on now. This is no weird desire to just be able to use the bathroom with white folks or marry white women. This is talking about.
That is a wait, hold on. That is an excellent analogy with what that guy Douglas was saying Lincoln or anybody else wanted to do in the obverse of us wanting to be whole Americans right now, right? That's kind of crazy.
Like, and see, I thought that was so interesting as well, because I'm reading, I'm like, that's what they were saying about the civil rights movement, is that we just wanted to be,
that's
you know, with white folks, because it kind of flipped, it's kind of flipped on its head, and black folks are saying that to us. I'm like,
crazy.
wow, that's crazy, right? Like, no, brothers and sisters, this is about American citizenship, and that everyone should be able to reap the benefits of their own labor, their own work, and basically build equity and value in their own space in America. We're all carrying the same burden. We don't pay less taxes than the average white American. Taxes aren't appropriated based upon phenotype and race. We all have to share that same burden. So when someone says Dr. King was a sellout because he was fighting for integration, I have to understand that they are ignorant and they don't understand what the civil rights movement was about, because it doesn't make sense to be able to work downtown and you can't eat downtown. It doesn't make sense to work downtown. You can't rent a hotel downtown. It doesn't make sense to be paying the same amount of taxes that every other citizen's paying, and you can't access the same amount of America that every other citizen is accessing. This is what the basis of all of our plight is about. And see, so when we eliminate, I'm so glad Lincoln saw that back then, so we can revisit it now. And it just really speaks to, we're still fighting the same fight.
That is just, I'm just zoning on that right now. Like, that is, wow. That is crazy. And somehow we picked that up and then we're using it. And to this day, people are saying that, civil rights, don't even know the definition of civil war rights. Ask people, what is civil rights? Oh, that's when they was begging white people for acceptance to get in and sit down and eat with them. I was like, that's not what civil rights is. You've never even looked the term up as an idiom, and then you never looked the term up just separately, the two words, civil or right. So I've had to school people on several occasions in that sense. Ali, you have something pulled up. All right, let's go to that real quick.
It's gonna be hard to see, but I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna tell you what it is. It's part of the debate from the Congressional Globe, documented April 11th, 1862. This was the 37th Congress, second session, and Representative Bingham is speaking. And what he does as he's speaking is he cites New York's Chancellor Kent as legal authority in the area of citizenship. Chancellor Kent is the same Kent who has what's called Kent Commentaries, which contributed very much to American jurisprudence. And he's one of the leading American scholars in the area of law. So he was cited by many other legal scholars, his Kent's Commentaries. So this is what Representative Bingham says with regard to citizenship as he's citing Chancellor Kent. He says, who are natural born citizens, but those born within the Republic? Those born within the Republic, whether black or white, are citizens by birth, natural born citizens. There is no such word as white in your Constitution. Citizenship, therefore, does not depend upon complexion any more than it depends upon the rights of election or of office. All from other lands, who by the terms of your laws and in compliance with their provisions become naturalized, are adopted citizens of the United States. All other persons born within the Republic, of persons owing allegiance to no other sovereignty, are natural born citizens. Gentlemen can find no exception to this statement touching natural born citizens except what is said in the Constitution in relation to Indians. The reason why that exception was made in the Constitution is apparent to everybody. The several Indian tribes will recognize that the organization of this government as independent sovereignties. They were treated with as such, and they have been dealt with by the government ever since as separate sovereignties. Therefore, they were excluded from the general rule. I adopt the words of that man whose clear intellect, through a long and laborious life, contributed much that will endure to the jurisprudence of his country, the lamented Chancellor Kent of New York, who declared that every person of African descent born in this land is a citizen of the United States, and although born in a condition of slavery, under the laws of any state in which he might be held to service or labor, still he was a citizen of the United States under disabilities. And what I liken that to is saying is no different than an incarcerated individual who is a citizen of the United States but does not enjoy all the rights of citizenship as someone who is not incarcerated. One of the things that people have to understand the 13th Amendment does is it shows you that slavery is synonymous with incarceration. I was just debating with a historian, a European historian, just yesterday about whether or not slavery still exists in the United States per the 13th Amendment. And I had to show him through the thesaurus that two of the synonyms for the word enslavement or enslave are the words incarceration and imprison. So at the end of the day, what the United States did with the Three-Fifths Compromise was count at least 60% of the enslaved population as citizens for the purpose of representation in Congress. There are so many instances where the proof of African American citizenship, whether slave or free, was being demonstrated. I have some other things. I'll let you guys go in if you want to add on to that, brothers. If you want to add on to that before I go on to the next piece, just to to show the citizenship of African Americans in this country before the 1866 Civil Rights Act or before the 14th Amendment.
I mean, definitely. I have some things I wanted to pull up, but where L, did you want to jump in and say something to that?
No, yo, I have something as well that you basically what you're saying goes right hand in hand with what Abraham Lincoln was saying. And I'm gonna pull that up. It's only gonna take me a minute too. So I'm definitely gonna pull that up and read that. And I thought it was interesting that you said that because Abraham Lincoln, like this is not a new development. This is not a new development, people. So what Brother Ali is bringing forth, what Brother Josh is bringing forth, what Abba's talking about, what I'm talking about, this is not new stuff. They knew this back when this discussion was the hot seat topic. They knew this stuff because they're arguing about it and saying the same things we're saying today.
Right.
But somehow between then and now, we've lost that concept. And sometimes we've fallen backwards and been like, oh, we wasn't citizens. But they knew we were citizens then. And you can understand that through the language that's being expressed through them debating this topic. And I'm pretty sure the brother's about to pull something up. As soon as he gets ready to go in, I'm going to pull up something from Lincoln talking straight to that point. Straight to that point.
All right. So let me just run through this real quick. I'm going to go back to what Justice Curtis said in his dissent of Dred Scott. And then I'm going to go back to what the piece where Ali Bey was reading from out of the Congressional Globe. Now, I want y'all all to pay attention to this. This is interesting. So Justice Curtis, again, one of the two justices who dissented in the case of Scott v. Sanford in the United States Supreme Court against Justice Taney and his racist. I mean, they were slave holders. They were trying to protect slave holders. The other 6 justices that agreed with him on the Supreme Court were slave holders. This is something that we ran through years ago, but it's fresh now, because the audience is growing. So we get to kind of reach out to other people and give them sort of a civics lesson as well. So he says this: it has been asserted that the Constitution was made exclusively by and for the white race, as it has already been shown that in 5 of the 13 original states, colored persons then possessed the elective franchise and were among those by whom the Constitution was ordained and established. So Justice Curtis is arguing that our people's voting in while they were a part of these 5 states, taking us as a monolithic people, that tribe that my brother Ali Bey was breaking them numbers down earlier, because you hear a lot of black conservatives using that line too. You know, black people are not a monolith. Well, we are if you're breaking us down by tribe. And as my brother Ware L said, we have no ancestry to look back to according to these Europeans, right? So Justice Curtis he demolished. Matter of fact, one commentary I read by a constitutional professor some years ago said that Justice Curtis ground Chief Justice Taney's arguments up into powder. That's how bad he destroyed his arguments. Okay, so let me continue.
He did.
He really did. He really did. He says, so if so, it is not true, in point of fact, that the Constitution was made exclusively by the white race, and that it was made exclusively for the white race is, in my opinion, not only an assumption not warranted by anything in the Constitution, but contradicted by its opening declaration, that it was ordained and established by the people of the United States for themselves and their posterity, meaning we the people. Let me continue. And as a free colored person, and as free colored persons were then citizens of at least 5 states, and so in every sense part of the people of the United States, they were among those for whom and whose posterity the Constitution was ordained and established. So when Prophet Noble Drew Ali is saying, help me bring my people back into the constitutional folds because they've fallen from that, we that study and follow that particular school of thought, we understand. And I want to bring y'all to one more piece before I let my brothers come back in. And it's this piece corroborating Justice Curtis's claim here, his finds, his research. This is from the. Can y'all see this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let
me see.
Zoom in a little bit if you can.
Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. I think I may have made it too big. Okay, let's see if we can get through this. All right, this is from the Congressional Globe. This is from the U.S. Congressional Documents and Debates between 1774 through 1875. Congressional Globe, House of Representatives, 37th Congress, second session, page 1639. We do sources here, people. It says, but sir, now I forget who was arguing this. I used to have all this stuff in my notes. I got it I have it in my notes. So forgive me for that part. It says, but sir, if the right of the elective franchise is to be the test of citizenship, I beg gentlemen to remember that when this Constitution was ordained and established, under which, this is kind of broken up because this is an old document, under which, I don't know what that word is right there. Oh, excuse me.
We legislate.
Okay, I see. Under which we legislate, it was ordained and established through the suffrage of persons of African as well as of European descent, excuse me. And the majority of the states of the Republic, they assisted in the election of the very persons through whose agency the Constitution was finally ratified. Again, my brother Ware L was talking about, and my brother Ali Bey would always say this taxation without representation thing. That line, they assisted in the election of the very persons through whose agency the Constitution was finally ratified. So by those, as we call them Moors, but now we could call them ADOS as well, being citizens of these 5 states, when they voted, they cast their vote, when they exercised their rights of suffrage for that representative, and he then went and signed the Constitution that automatically made us citizens day one from this country, in this country, day one. So let me continue. It says, look at the records of North Carolina for information on that subject. Look into the legislative records of Maryland and Delaware. They're giving us the blueprint here, people, of where to look. It continues, and look at the records of the New England states. And you will find that persons of African descent did enjoy the elective franchise and had a voice in the adoption of your Constitution. To this day, they hold and enjoy that right in several of the states of the Republic. You cannot, as federal legislators, prevent the exercise of this right by the colored citizens. You cannot help it. The Old Bay State, true to her sacred, her immortal traditions, recollecting that her soil is holy ground, marked with the footprints of the apostles and martyrs of civil and religious liberty, has held to her ancient faith that rights, even political rights, are inseparable from manhood and citizenship, and in no wise dependent upon complexion or the accident of birth. It's clear, people. A part of this show was to show that we have been citizens from day one in this country. The Articles of Confederation, under that document is when we began our suffrage in this nation. And when I mean suffrage, I don't mean we suffered. I mean voting rights, right? So some people may get confused. I got to confuse that first, right? So I had to look that up. I'm like, what does that mean, right? So,
absolutely, that's a good point that you just made there in and of itself. Why do they equate voting and non-voting to suffrage? That's something to just think about. Go ahead and write that down and think about that.
The etymology of that, actually. But in the Constitution, it basically says all debts and contracts entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be as valid in this. I'm paraphrasing, and I can't remember exactly where that's at. I don't know if that's in the 7 articles or one of the amendments. It may be in one of the amendments. I'm not sure. It just came to my head from out of the Constitution. But it basically says it shall be as valid as it was during the times of the Article of Confederation. So on that topic of our citizenship and when we became citizenship, I think we kind of closed the door on that. Brother Ali Bey wanted to bring up something. Was there anything you wanted to add?
I wanted to say something real quick.
Okay, go ahead, Brother Josh.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because I know some people may hear this and they may be trying to figure out the relevance of why we're talking about something from 1700s and 1800s and how, when do we become citizens? Well, keep in mind that you have certain people out there that are saying that we were not citizens. You have certain people out there that are saying, and you even have like Afrocentric scholars and professors at HBCUs arguing that we were not citizens. And what does that do when in the middle of a time period where we've pushed the reparations conversation forward? That means you have people who are perceived to have credibility in this space who are largely not even being challenged with the claims that they're making, and they're echoing and doing the work for the people that would not want us to have reparations by saying that we didn't become citizens. So we were not citizens. So essentially what he's saying is, because we were not citizens, then we can't get reparations for being enslaved. What sense does that make? I mean,
like the Japanese Americans were able to, because they were citizens.
That's right.
Right. And and I say another thing. Of course, that is a point that we're making the point that we are citizens. But let's just say we're not. So America still doesn't pay another nation or another group of people reparations. I don't think citizenship is a prerequisite for reparations. In any way, we stand in the shoes of those who went through that institution, and we are citizens. So I don't think that that argument gives any credence to be able to throw reparations claims for the period of slavery out the window. So I just wanted to share that for those of you who are trying to figure out what's the relevance today to this. I mean, first we have to have a true understanding of history, but secondly, you can't let these people who want to deny you your justice to shape the narrative and to go unchallenged on claims that's trying to take you away from your justice claim. So that's what I want to say.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
A lot of these people,
yeah, Ali.
A lot of the people who are anti-reparations are people that have some kind of mixed ancestry background. They're mixed people. They're oftentimes people in interracial relationships. Like, and when I say mixed, they're not like ADOS. They're some other thing. They could be part ADOS, but then maybe something else. Some kind of an immigrant, whether it's a Black immigrant or a European immigrant, because it seems like immigrants, period, have a problem with ADOS reparations. Mixed race people, biracial people, etc. So it's always something going on there. Or so like when Abba was debating the dude Reggie, come to find out he's with an immigrant, and so it's like, okay, so this is why you're going so hard against reparations for ADOS, because you feel like your immigrant woman would not be a beneficiary of it. But I wanted to bring this up since we're talking about evidence of citizenship. This is something that I found in a book called The Passport in America, The History of a Document by Craig Robertson. I think it's his name, Craig Robertson. And so what it says here is this. And the reason I brought this up, I brought it up because it came up as part of the debate that I was having with the professor from Howard University. And I wanted to show him different evidences of citizenship for Black people before the 1866 Civil Rights Act, because his claim was that there was no evidence of Black citizenship of the United States before the 1866 Civil Rights Act. That's not true. This is not true. And so basically the United States, I'm just going to read the highlighted section. The United States were issuing documents to African-American sailors that said that, it says this: Black sailors received what was called a Seaman's Protection Certificate. People can look this up. Seaman's Protection Certificate that stated that the bearer was a citizen of the United States of America. It was introduced at the end of the 18th century. These documents were regularly used until 1940. It's estimated that many thousands of them were issued to free Black sailors from 1796 to 1868. As a runaway slave, Frederick Douglass escaped disguised as a sailor and carried a borrowed Seaman's Protection Certificate to prove that he was a freed slave. So there are a number of things, along with what Justice Curtis was talking about in terms of citizenship in the states, according to the state constitutions, who qualified as citizens. There are a number of things to show that our people were members of this society and seen as that from its inception. We can talk about Crispus Attucks, what he meant in the American Revolution, why he felt compelled as a Black man to come to the aid or to the defense of the colonies at the time, up to even, let's talk about the preamble to the Constitution. One of the things that you'll find out, one of the things I found out was that during the debates with regard to the Constitution and the wording of the Constitution, there were people in the southern states who wanted the preamble to say, "We, the white people, who ordained and established," but that was a part of the debate, and they lost that debate.
Yeah, I'll just Justice Curtis. I just read that.
Yep. Yeah. So that's real. Like in other words, as Tariq Nasheed will call them, the dominant society. If they wanted we the white people to be in the preamble, if they wanted the word white to be in the Constitution, they could have easily put that in there. They could have put that in there, but it's not there. The word white does not appear anywhere in the Constitution. Nowhere.
Or the word Negro, for that matter.
Nor the word Negro, nor the word black.
That's right. You know who really points that out is Frederick Douglass, man. Once he breaks away from William Lloyd Garrison and he starts to read the Constitution for himself, he wrote this one paper that really, I don't know. I think we just need to do a show on Frederick Douglass in and of itself. That brother was powerful, man. Powerful. So where L, you got something pulled up. So let's go to that. We winding up the hour. We put. I knew this was gonna be a show tonight, fellas.
Yeah, I ain't gonna be.
Yeah, I got the screen up. Where
I'm not gonna take. All right, cool. I'm not gonna take too much. I'm just trying to run through this. I think I'm having some problems with my internet connection, but Abba was talking about the decision of Justice Curtis, right? And because most people who talk about this only want to talk about Justice Taney, they don't want to talk about what the president, who was the leader of the country, what his opinion was at the time, nor any of the other justices. They want to just use Taney absolutely and supremely. But so I'm going to go even again and use Justice Curtis, who was challenging this Taney decision, and go into what he was saying just a little bit further as we close out. It says, on the contrary, this is keep in mind, this is Lincoln in his speech talking about the decision. He said, on the contrary.
Hey, you know what? I think that speech was
contrary to Taney's decision. Judge Curtis, in his I believe so. I could get that. It's in this what I have brought up. But it says, on the contrary, Curtis, in his dissenting opinion, shows that in 5 of the then 13 states, to wit, talking about the formation of the Constitution now, Abba already framed that. I'm just going in a little bit more on that. To wit, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, and North Carolina, free Negroes were voters. How you voting if you're not a citizen?
Facts.
And in proportion to their numbers, had the same part in making the Constitution. Listen to what he's saying, y'all. Had the same part in making the Constitution that the white people had. He shows that with so much particularity as to leave no doubt of its truth, and as a sort of conclusion on the point, holds the following language. Now listen to this. The Constitution was ordained and established by the people of the United States through the action of each state of those persons who were qualified by its laws to act thereon in behalf of themselves and all other citizens of the state. In some of the states, as we have seen, colored persons were among those qualified by law to act on subject. These colored persons were not only included in the body of the people of the United States, by whom the Constitution was ordained and established, but in at least 5 of the states, they had the power to act, and doubtless did act by their suffrages upon the question of its adoption. Now, if that's not powerful, I don't know what is. And if that doesn't put to bed all of this talk that we weren't citizens, I don't know what else you need to read. I don't know what else you need to read. That right there, Justice Curtis needs to be the only justice you refer to when it comes to
Justice McLean. And Justice McLean. Justice McLean as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
because I was reading over his article today. I hadn't read over it in years, and he gives some powerful insight. Like this book right here, The Unconstitutionality of Slavery by Lysander Spooner. It's a must read. It helps to challenge just like we probably challenged a lot of people's views tonight just on ethnicity and dealing with our citizenship and when it began in this nation. Lysander Spooner, and this was done in the 1800s. This is just a masterclass right here in constitutional law and the proof that everything that Justice Taney said, Justice Curtis and Justice McLean said was fact, and that Justice Taney was lying, and everything Abraham Lincoln said about their descent and the particularity of it just squashes this idea that we were not citizens on this land from day one. I think it's the rules that they use to try to keep us down by telling us that our citizenship starts with the 14th Amendment. If you ask me, then that gives them an out by saying, that gives them an out because they could say, well, y'all wasn't citizens in, when the slavery ended. So
if you really look at it, with all of the decisions and the conversations that we're talking about, there wasn't even a 14th Amendment that was passed through Congress at that time. Mm-hmm. They're talking that hadn't even been pushed through Congress and signed by President Lincoln at that time. These are and this is what the confusion is. They had to pass the 14th Amendment and all that to put it in constitutional language so that it couldn't be argued again. That's what made it. It wasn't that we weren't citizens. It was that you had racist white folks, slave owners, states' rights proponents who wanted that to be the national narrative, but it contradicted constitutional language because it wasn't in there. That's right. Abraham Lincoln and the Congress of that time amended the Constitution in a way that made it specific so that it could not be loosely interpreted how anybody wanted to. Any governor, any landowner, any senator or representative from any of the states didn't just say, well, hey, it doesn't specifically say, so I'm going to just exclude these people out of it because, as Justice Curtis said, we helped create the Constitution. We were a part of the forming of the Constitution, and you can't leave us out of it, especially when we built the country in the first place.
And I think that is when you look at it, that bolsters, in my opinion, our reparations claim. It bolsters
indeed.
It does. And I just wanted to read from this book called The Promises of Liberty. With regard to Attorney General Edward Bates and the Secretary of the Treasury, Salmon P. Chase, there was an incident. This, again, is before the 1866 Civil Rights Act. This is before the 14th Amendment and all of that, right? So we're talking about citizenship for the purposes of, and the reason that citizenship came up, like Brother Josh was saying, is because in my debate with the Howard University professor, he was trying to say that Japanese Americans were able to get reparations because they were citizens who were done, who suffered some kind of injustice at the hands of this government. And I'm saying, and my argument to him was, well, our is documented as citizens.
But look, real quick before you go in, that goes to the point that I was making by trying to make it seem like, well, we didn't become citizens until the 14th Amendment, so we can exclude the period of slavery.
Exactly.
The matter is, when this nation was founded, we casted our votes and we were citizens. And as a matter of fact, we casted those ballots under the Articles of Confederation before the Constitution was even ratified. Go ahead, brother.
That's right. And even according to Chancellor Kent, who authored the Kent commentaries, according to him, even the slaves were citizens because they had no political allegiance to any other nation. And they were being counted, according to the 3/5 compromise, at least 60% of them were being counted as citizens for the purpose of representation. So it's like, let's not play games with this thing. They're citizens with disabilities. Just like
one more thing before you get started, Ali. It's another debate I think we might need to have. Is it salmon or salmon?
Salmon. I always say salmon. The L is silent.
The L is
Alright.
silent, but I
Right.
always say salmon. But
Yeah,
in
you're
this
not the only
case,
one,
this
man.
man's name is it Salmon P. Chase or Salmon P. Chase? I don't know. Go ahead.
But to the point, like I said, slaves are no different than incarcerated or imprisoned people who are citizens with disabilities, meaning they're citizens that just don't enjoy all the civil and political rights of a free citizen, but they're still citizens. Same thing with their women, their white women and white children. They were citizens, but they couldn't run for office. They could not vote. They couldn't be elected, all of this kind of stuff, but they're still citizens, right? But they're on a certain level disabled. So let me just read this. 1862. A turning point in the Union's efforts to define citizenship came in late 1862 when Salmon P. Chase, the Secretary of the Treasury, asked Edward Bates, the Attorney General, to issue an opinion on the citizenship of freeborn African Americans. Like many Republicans, Chase had been looking for an opportunity to have a national pronouncement that would reverse the Dred Scott Opinions Declaration against Negro citizenship, and the perfect situation presented itself when his Treasury agents captured a ship piloted by a freeborn African American who had stolen the ship from the South and piloted it to Union waters. Bates's opinion began by venting the frustration that so many others have felt when trying to offer a single simple statement of the meaning of citizenship. 80 years of practical enjoyment of citizenship under the Constitution have not sufficed to teach us either the exact meaning of the word or the constituent elements of the thing we prize so highly. Bates concluded that the man was indeed a United States citizen, for he had been born free. This is what, listen to what he's saying was the prerequisite for citizenship. Bates concluded that the man was indeed a United States citizen, for he had been born free in the country, and to the extent he might feel allegiance to any political entity, it would be to the United States. Republicans approved of the opinion. A Maine man was grateful that Bates had reasserted the essential facts of birth and allegiance as the basis of citizenship, rather than relying on more recent standards of the fact of color and of the more or less curl of the hair. Bates had the opinion he wanted and eventually sent copies of it to his agents in Louisiana to provide justification for the plan he was attempting to put into effect there, under which African Americans would take part in Unionist conventions, rewrite the state constitution, and apply for readmission into the Union.
That's a powerful piece. And that was one of the things that I brought up in the debate with the brother Reggie the other night, and that was off of Brother Ware L's breakdown of a part of the plan that we believe is that a lot of these states' constitutions need to be rewritten. There needs to be new constitutional conventions within these states because these old slavery and Jim Crow type laws are still on the books in these states. All right, we've reached our limit, so I'm gonna let Brother Josh come in real quick. And I'm gonna let Brother Ware L close us out.
No, I just wanted to restate what I said before, which is on the citizenship end. If you look at how much if you just calculate the labor, I can't remember. You can go to ados101.com/roadmap to reparations, and on that website it calculates, it gives you the calculation and the breakdown on how much we should be looking to get at reparations. But a significant amount of that comes from the time period where we were actually enslaved. But it's not just for that time period. It's also including the time period after which we experienced 100 years of Jim Crow, domestic terrorism, land theft, all this type of things. But that first part, which is theft of property, which is ourselves, just ourselves counted as property, is responsible for wealth accumulation in the North and the South, and theft of labor. The time that so if you're not able to count that because you're using some type of citizenship loophole, that's just an additional hurdle that we shouldn't even have to spend time climbing over, because these things were so clearly articulated at the time. And I know some historians will argue against that. But I mean, we just read a portion where they were talking about deciding citizenship based on your skin color or how curly your hair is. So you can already see how arbitrary they're making these things. When so we can throw that out the window. I don't care what they're arguing. They were racist and they were trying to keep us enslaved. They're gonna use whatever means that they have that they can get away with to deny us the claim of citizenship. So I would just say, this is something that you want to put this show in your archives. You want to file this one away because we're just getting started with this. And I want to just real quick end with talking about what does this mean? What does this have to do with the current political situation as far as national politics, the upcoming election? Obviously, Joe Biden getting a nomination and giving us a fake Black agenda, which we covered on previous shows, is a problem. And some people will say, no, reparations is a dead issue. We shouldn't worry about it. Look, the key is don't let people pee on you. Don't let people, tell you it's getting ready to rain. So when you expect it, are you getting pee and you don't believe it's pee? You just think it's rain. I mean, we can't let that happen. So that's why we're calling out this dude. And the fight for reparations and economic justice is just going to have to proceed. If anything, we're going to keep fighting to keep waking people up. We're going to keep fighting to grow our voice. So like moving forward, we're extremely loud and we're extremely strong in numbers. So we don't let this type of situation happen again. So that's kind of what I want to share.
Definitely.
Peace, everybody. Oh, like and subscribe to this program. Like and
subscribe, family. We're trying to grow the channel. We got some. We growing every week, and I'm feeling that. People are starting to get some positive, give some positive feedback on the shows, and I'm feeling that. And just right now, a lot of people are home. So in New York, for instance, I know a lot of my bros that I grew up with, they're watching the shows, and the sisters as well. A lot of cats watch the debate where I, kind of had to crush that brother Reggie. I got to use them terms right now so they can understand just how. I mean, that's the terms they use when they hit me up. So, but yeah, tune in, y'all. Hit the subscribe button, then hit that little bell icon next to it so that you can get all of the alerts. All right, we're gonna go to our brother Where L and let him take us up out of here.
May blessings, family. Thanks for tuning in. All I want to say is, I hope y'all had y'all pen and y'all paper. We covered a lot of information tonight, and go back and fact check. Don't just take anything we say on face value. We dropped a lot of information tonight in the little 2 hours that we had. Go research everything that we said. And we covered everything tonight from race to ethnicity, the disparities and differences between the two, to citizenship, its history, and the truth and the lies about its origin when we're talking about American descendants of slavery and how we are foundational and really the true Americans and have the most claim on the American title as any other group. Not Native American, but United States of America. So with that being said, tune in whenever we broadcast. Usually it's Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tune in, hit the like button, share this broadcast with your friends and your family, and just remember, it's futile to fight the power. You have to be the power, and then you can obviously dictate your own destiny after that. But if you don't have the power, you just be fighting frivolously.
Definitely. I'm gonna let Brother Ali Bey just get a quick shout out as well, because I know we really wanted this show tonight because we wanted to highlight our brother, how he was schooling that professor. It was like a cat toying with a mouse. And so, Brother Ali Bey, close us out.
Oh,
Now
I didn't. Well, okay. So I would say this. It's bad.
No, go ahead. You good now?
Well, it sounds crazy on my end, but I'll just say it anyway. Two things to walk away from this show with is number one, African American is probably the largest ethnic group in the United States. Stop letting people tell you that we're a minority in this country. And number two, African Americans are actually foundational Americans. So that's a fact that we've shown that we're foundational to this country, and we've shown evidence and proofs of that. So that's the only thing I would like to say.
Definitely. You already know we are at the end of the show, the Be the Power Hour live stream. Your host, Brother Naheem. I want to give a shout out to my co-hosts / correspondents on the panel tonight. This was a very, very powerful discussion, and I knew it was going to get as deep as it got, or as high, elevated as it got. Stop saying deep. And I just want to close out with the show's mantra, which is don't just fight the power, become the power, and then you'll have the power to make a change. And with that, I say peace.
Peace.